everybody, welcome to another episode of Lost with Friends. As always, I'm your host, Paul, and today joined by a very good friend of mine. Why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hey everybody, my name's Jake Wolkan.
Now, Jake and I became really good friends in Hawaii, 2014 Lost. With that, you'll notice that that's a recurring theme in a lot of these episodes of the show, is people that I became really good friends with while I was there. Jake and I actually talk multiple times a week, I'd say almost every day. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yep.
Now, give us a little bit of your opinion on Lost 2014 and maybe kind of how you got into the show, because, obviously it's a big part of all of our lives, I'd say.
Right.
So if you could just give us a little bit of that.
Ooh, well, we'll start at the beginning. I got into Lost. My grandpa was over at my house one day. He was watching his shows, and it was the 5th episode, White Rabbit, that was on TV. I just happened to sit down. I enjoyed it. I thought the plot twist at the end, which I'm sure you'll discuss with whoever's doing that episode, really blew my mind. And I said, well, I got to get into this show. So I wasn't devoted really during season 1. I did, make it all the way to the finale. I thought it was a great cliffhanger there as well. And before season 2 had came out, I had binge watched the entire first season. So I was able to jump in at the premiere, and my obsession skyrocketed from there. I was known as the Lost guy at my school, which I had no problem with. But whenever an episode came out, people came to me, theories, questions, answers. They wanted to discuss it with me, and I loved it. I did end up hearing about 2014 Lost, and I knew I was probably the only one that I knew that would ever want to go to this thing, but I knew I needed to go. I wanted to see where Lost was filmed. I wanted to meet others that really enjoyed Lost. So I ventured out on my own, and I do not regret 1 minute of it. It was an absolute blast. Being able to see the filming locations, discussing it, getting to meet Jorge Garcia was awesome. It was definitely a great experience, and I'm definitely signed up for 2017 Lost, so you guys will be able to meet me there, and we can continue the fun discussions.
Now, you said you got into it early in season 1, but you didn't really get into it until season 2, right? So now, did you go back after you watched the episode White Rabbit? Did you go back and watch the first few that came before that, or did you wait until more the end of season 1 and you kind of just picked up from White Rabbit and just kept going from there?
Picked up from White Rabbit. So yeah, there were some things that maybe wasn't 100%. I didn't know.
Okay.
Luckily they have the whole previously on Lost segments that helped.
Right. But by season 2, the beginning of season 2, you were in.
Full-fledged, deep in.
Okay. So now so far, we've had, obviously myself, Mike Gilman and Megan Arnold as guests. And so far, you're the one who's, known the show the longest, because we all kind of got into it after the show was, or not after the show was over, but Mike and I actually discussed how we both got into it like right before season 5, and Megan didn't get into it until, I believe she said, summer 2013.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So you have the, what's the word I'm looking for?
Longest relationship with Lost?
There you go. Yes. You
All
have
right.
the longest relationship, so...
Cool.
All right, I guess we should just get right into the episode then. We will be discussing the episode Walkabout. Now, do you have any thoughts about anything in particular before we get into the episode, or do you want to just kind of go? Normally, the way that we've been doing this is I just watched the episode very recently, so when I did that, I sat down and I took a few notes, and I don't know if you have any notes or any thing, but...
it was a fantastic episode. When you had asked who wants to do what episodes, I knew Locke episodes definitely is my favorite character, so I just said anything Locke, I'll do it. Obviously, Walkabout's the first Locke episode, and some could definitely argue one of the most important Locke episodes, so I was glad that I got to do this episode of all episodes. But no, we can just jump right into it.
Okay. Now, like I said, if you have anything, obviously feel free to jump in, because this is definitely about the discussion. Now, the way we've been going with this is we're doing... I don't want to say we're doing big spoilers, like we're not being like, here's what the creature is or anything like that. But, if something kind of leads to, an episode down the line, like say maybe 2-3 episodes from now, like I hinted briefly at the twist at the end of season 3 and the big twist at the end of season 5, but I really didn't go any further than that in terms of like spoilers, because chances are anybody who's listening to this either is a huge fan of the show, met us in 2014, in Hawaii in 2014. But there is the chance, the hope on my end, that, maybe this could get some new people into Lost and maybe prepare them, whether they're going to 2017 Lost or just because they're fans of the show and they're like, oh, I want to, get into a show, a podcast about Lost. So spoilers are okay. I just don't necessarily want to get into any of the, the big things.
Oh, that's fair.
Okay, now my notes are often things I find interesting or humorous or whatever, so I have to start out. The episode opens with an I. This is the second time this happens. It becomes a recurring motif.
Right.
We also begin on the crash beach moments after the crash, which we didn't do in the previous episode. The Kate episode did not start that way, so I thought that was interesting that they went back to that moment of the crash with this character especially. Something I've noticed and pointed out every episode so far, they always, except for this episode, which is why I have it in my notes, somebody always seems to think that any strange noise they hear in the jungle is Vincent the dog. I don't understand why.
I mean, they know the dog's out there, and okay, if you had a choice between, this mysterious sound, is it a harmless lab or is it a killing monster? You kind of really hope it's the nice dog, you don't...
Right, but if the dog is able to knock over trees and make that creepy sound, maybe I don't want it to be the dog.
Yeah, maybe it's some sort of monster dog, a combination of both or something. But yeah, no, when you start seeing trees get knocked down, you can't rationalize it as a dog. I think you do have to accept that it's something way crazier at that point.
Right. But this time, like I said, when there's the noise in the fuselage, they know that it isn't Vincent the dog. So that's a nice growing moment for the characters, that maybe they're starting to realize that not everything could possibly be Vincent the dog.
Right.
I have the Sawyer, because I talked about this briefly in the previous episode. The Sawyer versus Jack dynamic is continued.
Yep.
Because they kind of started with each other in the previous episode, and it definitely goes a little further here when Jack's like, oh, it's Sawyer that's in there, and he's like, right behind you.
Right. Yeah, great line, yeah.
Now this is a little awkward, two dudes talking about this. I don't want to trigger anyone on the internet. Luckily this goes up in 2017. Hopefully the entire triggering concept is over, but who knows. Might be a little weird though, two guys talking about this, but I put that I remember reading, or maybe it was a commentary or something, how the flashlights that Sawyer and Jack hold, Sawyer's is bigger and Jack's is a bit smaller, was meant to be a joke, more for adults,
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I want to say maybe it was one of the commentaries or something I read online, but I'm pretty sure it was someone who worked on the show that they said that they did that intentionally, that they were holding different size flashlights for a particular reason.
Well, I mean, Kate does make a joke later on, and was I think season 2 or something? Like pull him out or something like that. So it's as you mentioned, it's a dynamic relationship that goes on for quite some time throughout the series. That they're maybe friends, enemies, rivals. They go through a lot of different. It's one of my favorite relationships in Lost is Jack and Sawyer, and this is how it begins, I guess, with flashlights as size comparisons.
I absolutely agree. Definitely one of the best things of frenemies in the entire series. Every episode I talk about how Michael Giacchino's score is amazing. Absolutely a character within itself. One of my favorite memories, by the way, I don't know if you remember this, but one of my favorite memories in Hawaii in 2014, it was
I know where
you
this is going.
it was you and me, and I think Kelly was there. Kelly, I don't know how,
It's just you and the New Yorkers. My apologies.
was it?
Bring their name.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we were walking along the stream in the middle of the there, and all of a sudden you just pull out your phone and
Well, I
you
think
just put.
one
Go
of the
ahead.
New Yorkers made the comment like, "Oh, wouldn't this be better if we were trekking along to some music? You know, some of the songs." And I said, "Which song?" And they said one of them, and I just pulled it up on my phone, and we were playing that song. And they're like, "Oh, he's got it."
That
That
was
was
oh
that I downloaded all that music prior to the flight. I wanted to get as hyped up as possible into Lost mode, and that's how I did it.
absolutely one of my favorite moments is trekking along while that music was playing.
Yep, yep.
Oh, I love that moment.
Yes.
But yeah, I have here, Giacchino's score once again takes me right into the story. I will never stop praising this music. And okay, next note. And we get our first instance of boar. Because pretty much up until this point, they haven't really talked about it because they, the comment is made a little bit later that they, don't have any food or anything. So they had to throw something in there. I noticed that when the boar is running at them, Charlie falls down and Jack goes back and saves him, much like he did in the pilot with the monster. I thought that was kind of interesting to kind of, it constantly shows that Jack is the hero. He is always saving people, and Charlie especially, because at this point he's still, junky, not quite aware of everything going on. Charlie.
Yeah, I assume that after what they went through in the pilot, Jack and Charlie, I mean, as you can see as the series goes on too, they have a very nice friendship. Especially after what you go through in the pilot, I think that, yeah, if Jack sees Charlie fall down or something, he's going to definitely run to his aid and help him in any way. And as you'll discuss in the first Charlie episode, Jack really comes through for Charlie.
Yes. Next note I have, Locke is way too happy about that boar.
It's his time to shine. Like he went to Australia looking for a walkabout, and he didn't get to do it. So this is something he probably would have experienced in that walkabout. So something that he's read about, he's trained about, whatever. And here it is. So yeah, I definitely understand why he's very, very happy. He brought the knives for a purpose.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, this one I thought was pretty interesting how it changed from one episode to the other. I have in the previous episode, Sawyer told Jack that Jack was still in civilization while Sawyer was in the wild.
Right.
This is juxtaposed with Saeed and Kate arguing that burning the dead when they say they're people and they, we're going to do this with no regards for their religion, that seems very uncivilized. Versus Jack, who embraces the in the wild aspect, and he says, they're gone, we're not. If only in yet another effort to keep everyone safe and get them rescued. I thought that was very interesting how within, it's been a day or so since that episode, and he's kind of already switched on that in terms of that, where it's like, well, maybe the wild isn't so bad.
Yeah, I think Jack too. That's just who he was. Burn it was to burn the bodies was probably always a solution for him. But yeah, I think he's learning quick that he is going to have to adapt to the wild as he realizes. Yes, the plane was 1,000 miles off course. If somebody's going to come, it's not going to be today. It's not going to be tonight. So let go for. He assumes it's going to be hopefully a short time, but. As he realizes it's going to be much longer, but he's got to let go of that civilization just a little bit, and like you said, embrace the wild.
Right. I have Jack also says a line that conspiracy theorists clung on to very early when he says, any bodies we bury aren't going to stay buried for very long.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Def
Do you remember the conspiracies around that one? I don't know. It doesn't help that there are certain events later on that all of a sudden you can mirror back to this and be like, Jack was onto something. Uh, but as I don't, they as they've said from the beginning, they weren't always, or they weren't dead,
Yeah,
so
well,
uh,
that was the thing that I talked about with Megan at the end of the previous one. How he says that line to Kate, 3 days ago we all died, and that one sent the conspiracy theorists, going crazy because they're like, see, he said it right there. They all died, and no, they didn't.
yeah. So I mean, this quote again, it fed into that fire, and who knows? Maybe since it was so early on in Lost, they wanted to get people talking about this. But I'm sure at some point it just became so crazy. They're in purgatory. They're in purgatory. That eventually the powers that be had to come out and say, no, really, they're not in purgatory. Like
Right.
the ones that died, they died. They're dead. The ones that lived are alive and well. So I think it was very good discussion at the beginning of the series, but then it just started to take away from the rest of the series.
Now, if I can go off for a moment, you said that you became the lost guy
Yeah. Yes.
in,
Yeah.
with your group of friends. Now, were you? You said people talked to you about it. They would come up to you after episodes and whatever. But now, did you talk with anybody online? Were you a part of like any forums or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, quite a few. The one I remember the most, I think it was just called the Lost Forum. Man, I can't remember that website at all. I know it's gone now. I definitely tried looking at it recently. Um, Quite a few forums. I was never really big into the fuselage. I know a lot of people did that one. The Lost Forum was one of them. Cannot remember the other ones for the life of me, though. But yeah,
Okay.
I did participate online. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know I had said that I would often almost live tweet seasons 5 and 6, but I never really got into any discussions with anybody like on Twitter and I never really joined any forums or anything like that until kind of long afterwards. Actually, almost in setting up for 2014 Lost, when I started talking with a few people, and because by that point, conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff were over. So it was just a matter of like, oh, what's your favorite episode? Who's your favorite character? Not what do you think is happening? Because as much as I like to read that stuff and have my discussions with, like, say, if we had been friends, knowing how much you like the show and how much I like the show, great. I could discuss it with you. But like, if somebody had come up to me in school or something and they, just started talking, like somebody that I wasn't really close with, even though they knew that I liked it, I don't know if I could really get into that.
Yeah, I had no problem definitely discussing theories. I was never really into them. I got asked a couple times my like theories on where the show was going, and I had nothing. I was like, I'm just going by this, week by week, like you guys are. Yeah, I read a lot of analysis of things, and I read other people's theories, but I never really came up with my own. I never really dug deep into a lot of things. Yeah, I never got into the theories game though. But I did love
Okay.
talking, analysis, or yeah, what was your favorite moment from the last episode, or what'd you think when this character did that, and then or somebody would just be like, I don't understand why so and so did this, or did I miss something from a previous episode? Because a lot of people in my school didn't really get the whole you gotta watch it week after week thing. They definitely thought that they could just miss an episode, and nope, they were behind.
That actually kind of brings me to my next note, which is where uh, Jack says, when they're still talking about, they need to burn the bodies, and Jack says, "We crashed 1,000 miles off course. They're looking for us in the wrong place." I said, I'd assume that line had to be thrown in there for new viewership and for refreshing people because it was still so early in the series and they were still trying to, maybe somebody heard something good about the pilot and then they were going to, get into the episode. Kind of like yourself where, you got into it a few episodes late and they could have those little lines in there. So it's like, oh, okay, that's what I, the main things that I need to know. They crash 1,000 miles off course and they're looking for them in the wrong place. Now I know why these people aren't getting rescued instantly. But I
Right.
thought it was interesting that they kind of had to throw that line in there,
Yeah, just a tiny refresher, and I mean, I like your thoughts on, since it was a new show, people might be getting into it at that point. That was a good idea, and I think I actually, for some reason, Fringe, just the TV show Fringe came to mind, where in the beginning they did pretty similar things, where they would be like, oh, well, this is from the time we did this, but as the seasons went on, there were tons of things that just happened from previous seasons or characters from previous seasons that they didn't like reintroduce or anything. It was just like, oh, they were there, and fingers crossed you saw the original episode it happened in, so you understand why it's happening now.
Yeah, you were expected to know. If you know, you know, and if you don't, go back and watch it yourself.
Yes, you've made it to season 4 or 5, more continue on. You should definitely know what's going on. Yeah, the first time watcher probably doesn't jump in season 4s and on.
Right. Well, I know with going off a little bit, I know with television, that's an issue that a lot of writers and producers tend to have with networks, because a network wants a show, for the most part, they want a show where anybody can jump in at any time. They want a show like a procedural show, like a Law and Order or NCIS or something, where there's characters.
Monster of the Week, like Fringe.
Exactly.
Yes.
But then they get into, a lot of shows, maybe not those so much, Monster of the Week, Case of the Week, whatever you want to call it, but a lot of shows like Lost, Fringe, Supernatural is a very good example, where early on it was Monster of the Week and then it started getting very serialized, because I think you need to reward longtime fans, and it's just a matter of it. If you want it to be where people are going to keep watching it, it has to be like life. And life isn't where every week you get into a new wacky adventure. Sometimes whatever it is carryover from the day before or the week before or whatever,
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. And those kind of shows are definitely my favorites. The ones where there's arcs, where there's a clear beginning, middle, end, and development. They mentioned the producers of Lost. They said Lost is a TV show about the characters. So right from then, that means the characters have to start somewhere and they have to end somewhere. And they're going to go through one hell of a transformation in the middle. So you definitely knew Lost from the beginning wasn't going to be procedural. There's going to be arcs. And then things like Fringe, they did definitely start off Monster of the Week, but then we ended up seeing the characters develop, and it required knowledge of previous episodes as to why they were becoming the person they were becoming, or why they did the things they did. So I definitely like that. Yeah, reward for the long time followers and long time viewers, with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Those are my kind of shows right there.
Although I agree with you 100%, although to be fair, in my opinion, Lost and Battlestar Galactica are probably two of the best at showing, having the long-term arcs and the fact that there is, even if it's the B story, or it may be the A story and the B story is the arc story, where they have a case of the week or whatever, and that's kind of what the flashbacks are for Lost. Mm-hmm. That's whatever this particular week is about, and but then the overall story is, they're still on this island and they're still trying to figure out about the the distress signal and whatever for that. So I do like how they did, even up until the end of the show, they did kind of balance that. I thought they did a very good job with that.
For Battlestar Galactica, but Lost definitely, damn near every episode had an A and a B story. Now, you didn't always know if the A story was going to be character specific or plot specific, but at least one of those stories was going to continue the plot. Even if it was like a 10-minute crazy thing at the end of the episode or something, it moved it forward. So yeah, Lost did a fantastic job of that.
Yes. Okay, going back to my notes, I just have Jack says that they've been there for 4 days. 4, one of the numbers recurring. I've been pointing out recently. I actually started it with the episode with Megan. Just little instances of the numbers cropping up kind of early on before they actually said, oh, here's the numbers. And then people went back and they were like, oh, they said this and they showed that. And I said, there was a lot of people who got very specific. I remember one of the things that I read was how somebody noticed that when Jack wakes up in the jungle in the very first episode, he has 4 scratches on his face. I never would have looked at that as
Nope.
a specific numbers related thing. But, 4 days, a little bit more on the nose with the numbers, foreshadowing, you know?
Yeah.
Although Kate seems to show loyalty to Jack so far, shadows of her past crop up. For instance, when she suggests Saeed doesn't agree with Jack, the silence between them indicates, to me, she may feel the same, or at least be playing both sides due to her trust no one attitude.
Yeah, agreed. Kate's been a do what you got to do to survive kind of girl. So if she thinks that Saeed's plan's going to work, but it may not be exactly what Jack thinks, she's still going to go with her gut on a lot of situations and a lot of scenarios. So that's Kate for you.
Yeah. Okay, so really quick, I've asked everybody this so far, and by everybody I mean the other two.
Yeah.
Kate hate within the Lost fandom. What's your thoughts? Do you have the Kate hate? I don't necessarily want to go off on a big thing, but I figure since we brought her up, I'll just ask you very briefly.
Don't love her. Don't hate her. I'd put her right, smack dab in the middle, maybe closer to the love than the hate. But I thought she was a very badass character at a lot of times, but foolish at other times. So, I didn't really look forward to Kate-centric episodes, that's for sure. So, again, wasn't love, wasn't hate, but, she was there.
Okay, I gotcha. My next note, Saeed talks about a power source on the island. I thought that was a bit of foreshadowing, a bit of a spoiler as well, but, Sawyer and Hurley fighting over food, Sawyer's stash of food. The nicknames are flying. I've said that in the last few. The nicknames is one of my favorite aspects of Sawyer. He's probably my favorite or second favorite character, to be honest, Sawyer.
Nice.
I love when he calls Boone Metro.
Yeah.
Probably one of my favorite nicknames.
Hurley gets a good one in there. He calls Sawyer Jethro. Did you catch that?
I now that you say it, I've heard it other times, but I didn't catch it this time.
Yeah, Hurley calls that to Sawyer. That's actually a Hurley nickname there.
Okay. Next note. No more food. If only they knew.
Yeah, again, they were really, really hoping they'd get rescued by now, but at the same time, you got to always keep food in mind. I don't know. I'm a huge food fan, so that's
you and me both, sir.
Yeah. So, I kind of even planned a couple meals in advance, I knew what I was eating for dinner when I woke up this morning. So, I don't know. That probably should have been in their head. I don't know who was really rationing the food before and who had control of the inventory and who so not the average person probably knew that there was only a limited amount of food left. Maybe they thought it could last a few more days. It didn't. So yeah, it definitely should have been on their mind a little more heavily than it probably was.
Yes. Okay, I have that knife throwing still gives me chills every single time.
I didn't write many notes, but I did write this one. It's a quote from Hurley. Who is this guy? And I think that's the question you ask about Locke for 5 seasons. Who is this guy? At one point or another, and multiple points, you're asking, who is this guy? So this is the first time this question's asked. The previous episodes, Locke's been somewhat of a mystery. He shines his orange smile. That was kind of weird and mysterious, I guess. He brings back Vincent. What's the motive there? He's forming a relationship with Walt. What the heck's up with that? So finally, somebody just comes out and says, who is this guy?
I actually do have that note, but I do have a few things in between there.
Sure.
I have, after 3 episodes, we finally get a little detail into this Locke fellow.
Yep.
I have, this is a brief time to point out that the philosophical John Locke popularized the theory of tabula rasa, which of course was the name of the previous episode, which means blank slate.
Yep.
I still think it's funny. Michael is seething when he tells Locke's name. He's like, his name is Locke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the only one that has any knowledge of Locke, and it's that he has a relationship with his son, and obviously Michael's not a huge fan, so when he speaks, it's gonna be, there's that anger in his undertone there.
Yes. The case of knives, of course. They get a lot of jokes out of that, first of all, which I love every time they, a character makes a joke about that. And then I do have, who is this guy? Perfect question. So glad to see that great minds think alike. That's the note that we both took.
Nice.
I have, and the plot twist. He works in a cubicle.
Right. Yeah. Nobody, I'm sure, saw that coming. I sure as heck didn't. But yeah, I mean, good plot twist there. Beginning of many plot twists in this episode.
Now, okay, see, I unfortunately the next one I have is if you had watched it from this episode, but I put Colonel. If you watch this when it was first on, what was your reaction? And I just would love, because like I said, I got into it a little later, and now we know that you got into it like just slightly past this one, but I would just love to know somebody's reaction to the fact that even though he works in a cubicle, he's still on the phone before we know that it's about, I believe they're playing Risk, right? Isn't that what that game is that they play
I
on?
looked into it, and it's a combination of several different games. I'm actually reading it right now. The game board and 3 red and 2 white dice are from Risk. However, it uses large pieces that are somewhat similar to Axis and Allies. So it looks like they didn't pick a specific game, they just mashed a couple together.
Okay. But I mean, even before that moment, when we get to that scene a little later, I would love to know, if anybody's listening to this, please put in the comments, if you watched it originally, what your thoughts were at that exact moment, if you could remember, at that exact moment when he was called Colonel, because I would just love to know somebody's thoughts on that. Also, we see Randy, who is Hurley's boss and later employee, and I'm pretty sure there's a continuity here somewhere. I think I read something about how the timing doesn't quite match up between when he was Locke's boss and when he was either Hurley's boss or his employee. I don't quite remember that. I forgot. I'm a terrible host. I forgot to look up that moment from my own notes before this episode, before we started recording this. But I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that in the timeline of the show that there is a continuity error there.
Just looking at Randy's Lostpedia page, which I will probably reference Lostpedia a bajillion times in this because it's a fantastic website.
Absolutely right there with you. Lostpedia all the way. I go there for a ton of things.
I mean, doesn't seem like the timeline's too crazy. He's works at the Mr. Cluck's for a little while. And then it just says, a short time later, Randy took a job at Hurley's box company. So, I don't think, yeah, it's tough to say the exact times when he was there and when he wasn't, or, when he was at Mr. Cluck's versus the box company, but I don't know, it makes sense in my head.
Yeah. I'll go with it. If that's the only, you know what I mean? Like, if that's the thing that I'm questioning, that means that everything else makes sense. So I'm perfectly okay with that.
Deep analysis right there.
The ticka-ticka noise.
Yes, it was, fun fact, which I'm sure you know, but it was a New York cab receipt printer. And so that was used, obviously Locke uses some sort of receipt printer-like tool, or in his office there, but it just happens to be the exact same noise that the monster uses. Maybe foreshadowing of some sort, but yeah.
Let's see. Anytime there's a hike into the heart of darkness, you sign up. Old habits die hard, even if she does have ulterior motives.
Yeah. I mean, the word you really associate with Kate is run.
Yes.
So
And actually,
that's
that's my very next note is Jack calls Kate out on running away. And she
yeah.
knows he's right by the look on her face. If you go
Yeah,
back and
it's
watch that scene, she has this look where she's like, he got me.
yeah.
Okay, now this is something that I pointed out to Megan
Mhm.
that I thought it was a few episodes from now, but it actually is the very next episode. In the previous episode, when she is on the farm in Australia, the one-armed man makes her breakfast, right?
And yeah,
And
she
he makes her.
enjoys it. Yes.
Yes.
I know where this
Do you remember what's in that breakfast?
that was it just bacon or ham or something meat. Meat was in that.
Something.
Something
Yes. So you know where I'm going with this note.
Yeah, I think Kate was just part of her deception. It's still very early on, so she's not trusting of everyone, and she just says whatever she thinks should be said for her to survive. If
Okay. As
And
long
so
as
it's-
someone else has noticed this, because Megan said, I'm pretty sure Megan said she hadn't noticed it. Apologies to Megan if you did notice it. I'm sorry, but yeah, I remember that, and I'm like, oh, and I knew that I had talked about it in the previous episode. Had to bring it up here, of course, because this is where it happened. I think it's funny that despite what happened to them, their awkward encounter in the previous episode, Michael goes right to Sun to watch Walt while he goes off into the jungle.
Yeah, that's a weird one, especially when he realizes she doesn't speak English. Like, I don't know, red flag in my opinion, but
Yeah,
I don't know
actually,
what Michael was thinking.
I actually have referencing that, and potential spoiler here. I'm not sure because it's maybe 2-3 episodes from now, but I put the scene is even more awkward in retrospect.
Yes, yeah. You don't have to say much after that. I will agree with you because obviously, I know where that's going.
Right.
And, I'm sure somebody listening to this in a few episodes, they'll have a little giggle as well.
I think it's interesting that Jack doesn't care about the. Well, I don't want to say interesting, but I have here, Jack doesn't care about the memorial. He barely even wanted to bury his father.
Yeah, I guess, does he just have problems with death? I don't, I mean.
Well, I'm wondering if this is he doesn't want to participate in this because whether it's he has a problem with death or maybe he's a little upset because he didn't get to bury his father. So it's like, oh, well, I didn't get to do anything for my father. Why would I do anything for these people that I don't even know?
Yeah, that's
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure. They don't really touch on this later on in the series if he has problems with death. He kind of does. I mean, because he has that save everybody mentality. So I don't know. Maybe that's in there a little bit that he didn't get to somehow save everyone. But I don't think that's really touched on too much later on.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, every episode so far I've talked about how Boone, and even Shannon points it out that Boone thinks he's the hero of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I have here, Boone, the hero, feels something for Rose. Perhaps it's guilt that he wasn't the one to save her. Because he points out that, she's sitting there alone on the beach.
Yeah, that's very possible. That he wasn't able to save her the first time, so he wasn't going to be the one to go sit with her. Maybe he just felt like that was a complete fail on his part, and he knows that Jack could do it better, and somewhat swallowing up the pride somehow, realizing that he already lost that battle, lets it go to Jack. But yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I have Charlie has his drugs, but he's embarrassed once Shannon comes around. And their whole exchange goes back to Charlie, because I've mentioned this a few times so far in the previous episodes, that Charlie is not only selfish, but this also refers back to his initial attraction to her in the pilot when they all go on the hike, because he will do anything to impress her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if he doesn't know Shannon well enough if drugs would impress her or not. So yeah.
No. I meant the fishing thing.
Oh, the fishing thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll go through any length to do that, and as you see, he didn't really have the experience for it, but. Guys do crazy things for girls, as I'm
right.
sure both of us can say. We've done things that maybe we weren't 100% on, but we're like, why not? Like, if this works out, the reward is fantastic, like, so yeah, he takes
I
that.
don't know what you're talking about, Jake. Speak for yourself.
All right, high and mighty, but yeah, no, I definitely understand why Charlie took the leap and said, why not?
Yeah,
Probably thought, I'm on an island, there's fish everywhere, what could possibly go wrong?
right. Um, but I do think it's funny though that when they're walking, I have here he's still waiting for someone to talk to him about the band, and he fails once again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe he loved the when Kate recognized him, like he loved it. You see him light up, and yeah, that was me. So I think he just loves being recognized, especially after the downward turn that Drive Shaft ended up taking. For anyone to hear of his band, he's like, yes, let's talk about it. It's same thing like Lost nowadays. Lost ended 6 years ago, but if somebody comes up to me in the streets like, let's talk Lost, yes, let's do it. Like it's been 6 years, but yes. So
Yes.
I get it. I get it.
It's funny actually. You mentioned about how you were into it during school, and I didn't. Like I said, I didn't get into it until right before season 5, and I was towards the end of high school at that point, and I'm a nerdy person, and I was in AV because I went to a Vo-Tech school. They don't call them that around here anymore. They call them career and technology centers now.
Yeah,
But
actually, Michigan's done pretty much the same thing. Like I know what Votechs are, but you won't find any Votechs. You'll find the career centers.
I was in AV. That was half my day was spent in AV, and we often did a lot of news programming and things like that. We actually had a small news studio right in the classroom, so we would do the morning announcements, and I got very into like pretty much for because juniors and seniors were paired together, and freshmen and sophomores were paired together. So pretty much junior and senior year, I kind of took over being the news producer. So I would do like everything, and I would film all sorts of segments. I'm like, okay, somebody go cover sports, because nobody really did anything like that because nobody really cared. But I would, I got put my director hat on, and I'm like, all right, go find out this, go get, be an investigative journalist and whatever. And we would have to do like little opening things, and they don't really do it on the news so much anymore, but they would have like little bump in and out things before each segment. It would be like a little thing of music plays, maybe a video graphic. It's in it, it'd be like, here's Jake with sports, right, and it would pop up a little thing. So we would have them right before the show. The news would come on in the morning and whatever. And one time I put together like a little video, and I actually took the music from You All Everybody, and I put that as like the opening thing to our school announcements for probably about 2 weeks before somebody was like, is that the thing from Lost? I was like, it is the thing from Lost.
Speaking of Lost references and people pointing them out, the background of my work computer, it is a Dharma logo, and with the Little Caesars logo in the front. I work at Little Caesars, so it shows up on the big screen projector whenever I'm doing a PowerPoint, which is actually every day I work. I teach a class using PowerPoint, and so it shows up on the big screen. And I've been doing this since August, and I've had only 2 people say, "Isn't that from Lost?" And I get super excited, and I high five them, and I'm like, "Yes, somebody finally gets the reference." That. So yeah, I know what you mean when you try to sneak Lost into everyday life and see who can figure it out.
Yes, it's very fun. If the person gets it, that is.
Right.
Okay, back when Kate and Locke and Michael are in the jungle, from what I understand, there is a deleted scene where Kate questions, John Locke, as in the philosopher. I'm kind of upset that it's not there, because we have to wait a few years before a joke is made about that in regards to Jeremy Bentham.
Yeah. Yep. I'm looking at all the cut materials right now, and it's actually, Kate would have known that because apparently she minored in philosophy in college, according to that cut scene.
Kate went to... Okay.
Well, I have a feeling that Kate didn't go to college once that scene was cut out. But if they
Right.
had left the scene in, then yes, Kate would have been a college girl.
Okay. That's the spin-off prequel that I want.
Kate in college girl, Kate. Oh
And
Jesus.
that's what it's called. It's called Kate in College. That's
Kate in
literally
college.
that's the title right there.
All right, I'm in.
uh Kate is so thankful Locke interrupted when Michael asked what she was doing in Australia.
Yeah.
Michael ruined everything because Locke has given them the signals about like, okay, you go around and whatever, and he just kind of yells, "Quit giving us the steal signal,"
Yeah,
That
obviously Michael's not born to do all this hunting, just like probably myself in that situation. Maybe I would have either probably said something or just gave Locke the bird. Like that would have been my signal back.
I
I
I
don't
I
know.
would have probably just thrown up my arms like, huh? Because
Exactly. Like some people just aren't born to do it, and Michael's one of them.
yeah, but I have the fact that he blames Locke, or practically blames Locke for getting injured, but it's clearly his own fault
Oh yeah,
because he messed
100%
up everything.
Nope, nope, all Michael's fault.
Okay, I have Locke lays there for a moment. We know now why, because he was afraid, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. I have, because it's, then it would be where the flashback was. I have, there's many clues. In retrospect, of course, they're very obvious, but when I first watched it through, I had no idea.
Oh yeah. In retrospect, everything becomes obvious.
Yeah,
Tons, tons, and tons and tons of clues. Absolutely.
yeah, but when I first watched it, I had no idea.
Oh, of course.
First mention of Helen,
Yep.
and the first use of "Don't tell me what I can't do."
Yes, the infamous catchphrase. Yes.
Yes.
This is the beginning. I mean, this is obviously it's Locke's first episode, so we start to learn a little about him and the things that make him him. Which one of those things is Helen. One of those things is the phrase "Don't tell me what I can't do."
Yeah. Okay. The only thing Michael can blame Locke for is not being helpful in getting him back.
Sure.
He's like, no, I'm gonna keep going. If he was, I put the next part is kind of a dick move, but he obviously needed to prove that he could.
Yeah, I mean that's what Locke had. His mentality was going into the Walkabout was I need to prove I can do it, and so that's why he continues on.
Next note: the birth of the Hurley Charlie friendship.
I wrote that down too.
I have a thing of beauty and many laughs.
I put beautiful relationship with Charlie and Hurley. This is again, as I mentioned, since this is one of the earlier episodes, you get to see a lot of beginnings, and this is where this is beginning. This episode is the first time Charlie and Hurley are hanging out, and it seems like they hit it off really quickly. Like they're having a good time out there, failing to catch fish, but they're having a good time doing it. And as everybody will see as the series continues, they just keep having a great time doing whatever the heck it is they're gonna do. So.
Now, in the previous episode, I've actually mentioned a few times about how in these early ones I think that Charlie is very selfish. But in the previous episode, Megan threw it down and she said that she eventually comes to like him, but that she is not a fan of Charlie at all. She said that he has a little bit of redemption towards the end, but she said overall not a fan of him. What are your thoughts on Charlie, very briefly?
Now, I mentioned Kate was pretty much dead smack in the middle. Charlie is on the hate, like definitely on the hate side of that spectrum. Again, yeah, he was kind of selfish in the beginning. Sure, he gets some good comedic parts in there. He's great comedic relief, sure, and I laughed at him, but I never bought into him. I was sick of the storylines of, oh, is he going to go back to drugs? Is he not? Fire and Water, one of the first things I said at 2014 Lost to you guys. Worst episode ever. So I stick by that, and sure, he redeemed himself maybe a tiny bit towards the end, but
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I disagree with you. I'll tell you, and we've discussed this previously. Not necessarily in terms of the character. I actually do like the character. I thought that there were things that were a little too far fetched. I'll admit, but I definitely did like his arc. I thought that he was very humanized by a lot of the things that he went through. You know. But in terms of Fire and Water being the worst, I will disagree with you on that, sir.
Let me guess, Stranger in a Strange Land?
Yes. Jack Flies a Kite episode. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
That is that's tied. That's really tied at worst episode. And that's the discussion when I at 2014 Lost when I met all you guys, where you guys were talking about Stranger in a Strange Land being such a bad episode. And yeah, I agree for the most part, but I also wanted to chime in with the fire water.
That's actually talking about how like we met and everything like that. It was me and I believe the Australians, right? We were in the conversation, and all of a sudden you and
Esteban was there too. And yeah, I believe that was about it. Probably a couple others that I can't remember.
And all of a sudden, I just remember that, you, and I think it was maybe the New York guys, you just kind of turned around and you're like, well, here's my thoughts. And all of a sudden you were just like, you were in our group. And
yeah, it was that opening night, that kind of like that mixer, welcome reception, costume contest. And again, I went there alone, so I didn't really have anybody to talk to. I didn't know anybody that was going. And I just saw an opportunity to jump in on a conversation I could definitely put my 2 cents in, and it went from there. Here we are.
The rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, and here we are. Yeah.
Okay, my next note. Saeed's pictures. Now, you probably know this, and many people listening may know this as well, but I have here, the story goes that when this episode was filmed, they hadn't cast the actress we'd come to know as Nadia, so the original scene didn't have her in the pictures. However, they had gotten far enough in the recording process, up to his episode where they did cast her, that they were able to go back in and film pickup shots of him looking at the quote-unquote correct pictures.
Right, yeah.
I think that's interesting, especially, I have it later on, so I'll skip over it when I get to it there, but especially considering that at the end of this episode, when he sees the man in the suit, that's not the same man that we come to know later as the man in the suit.
Correct. Yeah, it's an actor who looks a lot like John Terry, but it is not John Terry.
So is it just me? Maybe it was a pay issue because you have to pay them for whatever, for the episodes that they're in. Maybe it was a pay issue. He was more expensive than she was, but I find it kind of odd that if they got that far that they wouldn't have gone back in and put those, because it's not like they're in the same scene. It's very much like when Saeed is looking at the pictures, it could have just been, insert, from filming at a different time, just right there in this episode. I don't know. I think that's kind of odd.
Yeah, I guess it's one thing like the Nadia episode in Saeed, that's a few episodes down the road. So I understand that they hadn't casted Andrea Gabriel just yet, but I'm assuming with, Jack's episode being next after this Walkabout episode, that John Terry probably should have been casted or was pretty close to being casted, so that they could have had him there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The promise Jack made. Call back to the pilot. He obviously forgot, but he couldn't let her know that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wrote, this is definitely one of my biggest points on here. Again, I didn't write many notes. I did put that one on there. And I don't know if you want to throw a couple things down before I go into my spiel, because my spiel might be a second, but go for it.
Please, go ahead.
All right, so one of the things you're going to see, we talked about arcs, character arcs. There's a beginning, middle, end. He starts off as this man of science. If he has a plan, he's going to see it through. It's got to work his way. And there's several points throughout the series where characters reference let it go. You don't have to live up to 100% of your word, or we know your intentions are good. And Jack's very thick-skulled in that, and he just brushes them off. And I don't think we really understand the importance of them either until about seasons 5 and 6, when Jack does let go and he becomes closer to that man of faith that Locke always wanted him to be. but this is the absolute first instance of a let it go. Rose says to Jack, I'm letting you off the hook. Because Jack, once he realized, oh yeah, I did kind of make this promise to her, he probably would have been maybe a guardian to Rose. He would have always been looking after her, or something like that, because that's who he is. He wants to fix everything, including this apparently broken Rose. So Rose specifically says, I'm letting you off the hook. And there's several other points throughout the series where a character says to Jack, let it go. And again, we don't understand the importance of it. This is one of those retrospect things for sure.
Yes.
It definitely hit me a couple years ago when I was like, holy smokes. People have been saying it to him for years, and it took him a long time, but he finally does it, obviously. But this is the first instance to let it go.
It's actually interesting because I didn't even think about that. I never really made that connection. I don't have that in my notes. I do have a different note about the scene with the two of them, but I don't really have that in my notes at all. So, you stumped the host here.
Yeah, never really. Again, it's a retrospect thing. You don't understand the importance of every time a character does say it, and again, Jack just brushes it off because he's going to keep doing what he does. It takes a long time for him to change. It takes really 5 seasons for him to change. So little comments like the whole "I'm letting you off the hook" don't mean much at the time. If Jack was going through his metamorphosis like right now, then we'd understand. But he doesn't do that for a few years. So yeah,
right.
Total retrospect thing.
Okay. In the scene where Locke is on the phone in his bed, there's yet another clue about his paralysis. It says, I had zero idea about this, but some people apparently got it right away because the machine sitting next to his bed is used to stimulate muscles with paralysis. That went right over my head the very first time.
I think that would go over a lot of people's head that just have no experience with paralysis or friends and family with paralysis. Because again, yeah, I watched that episode plenty of times before I knew that fact, and it never stuck out to me because I just had no idea what it was. Yeah. So yeah, a hint for those that really understand paralysis, I guess, but
yes,
not for those that don't get it.
He's 8 months. They reference in that scene, yet another instance about the numbers. We hear the noise again when we're back in the jungle. The monster appears to be heading for Locke. He sees the monster, and he isn't exactly scared. Next note. Sawyer returns. He returns something of the deceased when he's, taking the passports to Claire. He's not exactly sure how to do it though, but this proves that he's not all bad because he is trying to have like a nice, oh here, this, maybe this is helpful, kind of moment.
Sawyer is the absolute definition of an anti-hero, and I used him in my English classes many a time when it was time to define anti-heroes. I definitely referenced Sawyer as often as I could, and this is just one of those examples where, yeah, he seemed like a total jerk at first, but then he does this slightly nice thing. Again, he's very awkward in doing it, but he does it. So, he's anti-hero is the word I associate with Sawyer the most.
Perfect word. I put, has Walt ever been that excited to see his father? When he comes back and he's limping and he's like, Dad!
Yeah, I guess hanging out with somebody that can't speak English for a long amount of time and being trapped on a deserted island, you might be excited to see someone you know. Yeah.
I have that Sawyer tries flirting with Kate. That makes 3 potential suitors because I talked about how in the previous episode there was no way that when Kate had the gun in the back of her pants and she goes to look, she goes to look at something and Hurley immediately looks down. I'm absolutely convinced that he was checking her out, which Sawyer actually references later when he says about the fact that, he calls him Captain Falafel, and he says, the Doc and Captain Falafel are fighting over you or whatever. So now the fact that Sawyer tries flirting with her makes 3 potential suitors for Kate.
Yeah, I I think that too every time that that scene comes out. I'm like, yeah, I was like, the only reason Hurley noticed a gun is because he was looking in the direction of the gun. What else is in that direction? Kate's butt. So it makes sense. I Hurley isn't I to call him like a suitor or somebody looking for Kate's attention. I think he realizes that's not his game and he steps out of that very quickly. You know, it's one thing to find somebody attractive, it's a different thing to actually pursue them. And I think Hurley realizes this is not his to pursue.
Fair enough. Okay, I have who's more selfish, Charlie or Shannon?
At this point, Shannon. Shannon has not. Again, every character really gets their arc. Shannon's doesn't hit for a little while, and I think I think Shannon's a little more selfish than Charlie. Charlie's got his drug problem going on that could mess somebody up and change all of their thoughts and feelings on anything. But Shannon, just a pain in the ass, a stone cold bitch at this point.
Okay, next note. Now we go back into your bit from earlier. I put well, not okay. You'll understand. I have and Rose and Jack now have conflict. Science versus faith crops up here. I always forget that it's her before Locke when he's like, "Oh, your husband is dead," and she's like, "No, he's not," and he's like trying to tell her like that is the case, but she has her faith that he's not dead. And as much as you said this is one of the first instances of, let it go, I would argue that this is also one of the first instances of, the science versus faith. And like I said, I always forget that that's right before, not right before, but, before Locke and him get into that same argument.
Yeah, holy smokes, that's wow, I didn't even really catch that. And mainly because when I think of the faith versus science debate, of course I think of Locke and Jack, and that always came to like a usually violent confrontations or at least great arguments. But really, Rose's faith in Jack's science here, like he doesn't sit down and argue with her. You know, he doesn't try to change her mind. She doesn't really try to change his mind.
That's
It seems
because
like they
she's
both,
mom.
yeah, she's mom. You know, they just both state what they think and they kind of moved on. And to me, for some reason, yeah, I never thought of that as the conflict because, Rose and Jack always have a mutual relationship and a fine relationship later on in the series. Yeah, but no, that is a good point that's the first debate point of faith versus science in the series of Lost, which becomes, a huge debate as the series continues. But yeah, good catch.
See,
Yeah.
folks, this is a communal show. We all still, to this day, we're still noticing new things. And I referenced this in the very first episode with Mike, how every time you watch this show, I find that you always find something new that you didn't realize before. There are so many layers to this series that I always find something that I didn't realize before.
Yeah, or you're gonna do something like this and learn it from somebody else.
Yes.
So
Next
yeah.
time.
Again, it was great going to 2014 Lost, and if anybody listening to this is on the fence about 2017 Lost, my first suggestion is just do it, and you can spit theories past anyone. That was the great thing. We all love Lost, so nobody's gonna be pissed if you start talking to Lost to them. We're all there for that reason. So.
I'm Jake. I'm gonna hold you to this. You come meet Jake and I, and we will absolutely hang out with you and talk Lost theories with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's number one. It's the number one. It's called 2017 Lost for a reason, not just 2017 come hang out at a beach. But yeah, but Lost is the forefront of the whole meeting and going there. So yeah.
Okay, next note. I put when the equipment is broken, and I have is Kate really upset about the broken equipment?
Maybe, I mean, like, obviously we all see how invested Saeed was in it. It's not an easy thing to build, and it's broken now. And I think so yeah, she's upset that this guy's work went to crap, but at the same time, it was the monster. Like, I don't know, all bets off at that point. Like, it's just about surviving. So I think that's why Saeed didn't get as pissed off as he was. Obviously upset, but he's just more happy or alive.
Well, no, because I was thinking more like the fact that he's trying to find this thing so that they could get rescued, and she wants off the island, but she wouldn't necessarily want to get rescued as her means
Oh,
of getting off the island.
very true. Very true. So, how upset is she that this device that could have possibly got him rescued is broken? Again, she probably again wasn't 100%, upset because Kate's got her motives, ulterior motives at all times, especially in these beginning episodes where she doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't know what's going to happen now that she's a, semi-free woman and the marshal that's supposed to take her is dead. She doesn't know what kind of consequences could happen from there. So, yeah, again, she wasn't 100% upset, but at the same time, you saw how hard Saeed worked on it and how bummed out he was. He'd be a tiny bit upset, too.
Agreed. Okay, I have. At this point, we should probably be thinking that Jack is hallucinating, and rightly so.
Yeah. Jack's obviously been on top of a lot of different things, whether it was saving the marshal, he went out into the woods in the first episode. So sleeping is something we haven't seen Jack do out of all the things he has done. So yeah, is Jack crazy? That's the big question at the end of that episode.
My next note is the coincidence of actually finding Locke, however, is a little too much. And of course, not to be too spoilerific, but we know any longtime fan knows about the word coincidence in regards to this show. But I couldn't not use it in that particular phrasing. Okay, so next note. Claire leading the service, I don't know why. I just thought that was very, very sad, but, very sweet as well that she kind of took that upon herself.
Sure.
Selfish Charlie finally gets the chance for his drugs. And I know in the very first episode, I made Mike feel very old, and potentially some of the listeners too, by saying that when 9/11 happened, I was in 5th grade. Now here's one that, makes me feel very old. Claire says the words video store receipt. Was this show really that long ago that those still existed at the time? Because it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
2004. God, I think Blockbuster was still in business then.
Oh, that makes me feel so old, though.
Yeah, wow. Huh.
Okay, next I have Kate asks Charlie, who just got high, if he's seen Jack. I doubt Charlie can even see her straight at the moment.
Yes, correct.
Jack is sitting by himself. This, of course, mirrors Rose towards the beginning.
Yep.
Michael still doesn't like Locke, but he realizes they're stuck there together, and Locke clearly has a connection with Walt. So he gives him a compliment to make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, yep.
And then he does that, right?
Yeah.
And then Locke turns around and lies about the monster right to Michael's face.
Again, we understand that Locke could also have ulterior motives. In the final scenes, we're going to see that Locke was previously in a wheelchair, yet he hasn't told anybody that at this point.
Yep.
So Locke's not entirely truthful about everything as well. Again, it comes back to that question: who is this guy?
Yep. Okay, I have again. The clues are there. The very first time when you watch it and the man says, peak physical condition, at first we should probably assume that this is because Locke is older. And then they reference his condition, which is the first real indication that we get in that moment. Mm-hmm. He's lived with it for 4 years. Once again, the numbers. And his anger issues pre-island are so obvious in comparison with his calm demeanor for much of his time on the island. I never really remember it until I'm actually watching it, where it's like, oh, Locke was so angry before he got to the island.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and of course, you see that in this episode, you're like, man, he is really pissed off. But then they fill in the rest of the story with more flashbacks, and you're just like, he's understandably pissed off. Like,
Yeah.
and everything comes together by the end of the series.
Okay, so I have then the wheelchair shot, which is, of course, the big reveal of the episode.
Yes.
And the more iconic use of "Don't tell me what I can't do."
Mm-hmm.
We now see shots from the opening with a different appreciation. He's wiggling his toes, and it makes a little more sense. And I have also, little do we realize in the pilot that when Jack calls Locke over to help pull that man out from the wreckage, this was mere moments after him regaining mobility.
Yeah, I love that tie back to the pilot there. Um, it's mere moments after he gains his mobility, and he's just ready to use his legs again. It's been 4 long years of not being able to use his legs, and he gets to stretch them out and see how they work and
I think it's interesting that like the first thing he does is to try to help somebody too.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't run off or anything like that. Yeah. Yeah, he helps out. Yeah.
He watches the wheelchair in the fire with a smile on his face. And I didn't point it out in the previous episode, so I'll point it out here. I put, we should also remember the line from the previous episode where Charlie and Claire are moving luggage and using the wheelchair. At one point, Charlie says, "Whoever's this was is probably better off than we are." And that line comes full circle right in this very moment, in this very episode.
Did not catch that. Fantastic. I mean, I remember the wheelchair being used to move things, but wow, I totally forgot about that line.
And that's actually the end of my notes. Because pretty much that's the final shot of the episode. Do you have anything else that maybe we didn't cover, or that you took notes, or anything that you want to add?
I guess I just have one big question. Like, after I watched the episode, I searched the internet for answers, for theories, discussions. I can't answer it.
Okay.
What's a 4-letter word for I don't care?
Nice.
That was my only question really at the end of the episode. Other than that, fantastic episode. It's one of these beginning establishing episodes that we start to learn characters, a little bit about them, that they all have different sides to them that we're not particularly seeing on the island, and later
I do feel bad though, because a lot of these early episodes you can't talk about as much in regards to them.
Oh, you can't. I'm sure when we get to like season 6, we're gonna be like 2-hour long talking sessions about the episodes. But
yeah.
Right now, right, we just got to discuss what we see.
All right, I think that just about wraps us up here on this episode of Lost with Friends. Anything else you'd like to add, Jake, before we let you go?
No, this was actually pretty fun. I had no idea what to expect going in. I don't write notes very often for a lot of things, so I had 5 bullet points on here. Yeah, a whole 5 bullet points of information. I have a feeling that you're going to contract me to do this again. And after we talk about my pay negotiations, I will write more notes.
Well, I know you seemed a little hecitant when I messaged you earlier. Yeah, it had to be earlier today.
I had no idea what to expect. Like, even when I was talking to people at my school about Lost and stuff, it was never like huge sit-down discussions. A lot of times it was a quick pass by in the hallway. Jake, I don't understand why this character did that. Hey, well, they did it because of this, and we moved on. Like, I never had like a lunchroom table going of Lost discussions or anything like that. It was usually just quick questions and answers or something like that. But so I've never done anything. Again, I never sat down and took notes about things. So now that I know what to expect, this was actually pretty cool, and I would love to do it again.
All right. Thank you very much for being our guest on the Walkabout episode. As you said, he said it, not me, folks. He said he wants to come back. So once I put the pressure on, he has no one to blame but himself.
Very true.
Once again, I'm Paul.
I'm Jake.
And since I forgot it in the first one, added it in the episode with Megan, I'll have to do it here. Thank you and namaste.
All right, namaste.
Hey everybody, it's Paul. If you like the episode you just listened to, make sure you give us a like down below, maybe subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends. Have a great day.